Hello, everybody. Welcome to the final session of Ally, which is both exciting and disappointing for me. It's been a really great week spending time with you all as you filter and find your seats. I'd encourage you to open up the chat if you like and introduce yourself. Am I still connected? Yeah.
Yeah, you're good.
Okay, good. Yeah, I think we've had a lot of people attending the whole way along, but this is the last session on a Friday afternoon. So we'll see how many of you show up live and how many of you are just getting the recording to watch it another time. So for those of you watching this on the recording, welcome to you as well. I know this is going to be a really, really great session with Scott. Scott spoke last year at Allied as well on leading a team, and it was very well received. We have the recording of that online. Welcome, everyone. Those of you who have been here before know the drill, opening up the chat there and introducing yourself, where you're from, and what you do. It's nice to see you. I'm Allie. I'm sure we've met by now. You must have come to at least one of the other sessions. Co-founder of Jane and clinic owner, multidisciplinary practice here in Vancouver. It's lovely to have you. And I'm not really going to do much more than that. That's all I'm going to say. Just hello. If you want to get the recording of this session, make sure you add Jane or support@jane.app to your contacts so that the recap email we send out later today arrives in your inbox and is not filtered out by your spam filters, which has been a problem before. And I think that's all. Was there anything else? I keep forgetting things I need to say, but I think that's it.
I think you're covered.
I am just going to sip. I'm going to go and get myself a beverage to enjoy while I listen to your talk, Scott. And as always, if you're hearing things that you really resonate with or something that you find interesting, feel free to add it in the chat throughout the talk so that other people get to hear a little bit of just a recap of oh, that point was really good. You can put it in the chat. It's nice to hear what other people are feeling is helpful. It's nice for Scott. It's nice for me. It's really a kindness that you can do for speakers is say that point was excellent. Just share it in the chat. Make it a bit of a conversation. Okay, Scott, do you want me to introduce you? You're going to introduce yourself.
Yeah, I can introduce myself.
You're going to
No big deal.
All right. Okay.
All right. Well, welcome everyone. Thanks for joining on a Friday afternoon. Sounds like a lot of people on the West Coast. I'm currently in LA as well, so still on Pacific time, and the weekend is almost here. We're all excited about. I'm going to share my screen. Just give me a second to get my setup. I want to pull up my video and pull up my chat here. Ellie, is that clear on the screen?
Yep, you're good. Sometimes it's hard to see chat while you're sharing your screen, but I'll let you know if anything.
I'm on my big monitor. That's why I apologize around the border, but I needed to shift it out. So.
Perfect.
Hey, Kelly, thanks for showing up. All right, well, let's get kicked off. I will keep my eyes on the chat, but I'm going to try to get through this in about 30 minutes, and then we'll have 15. I've got some time after if anyone wants to hang for questions, but we'll try to get some Q&A. Acknowledging a lot of people are coming in at different stages of the business. Some of you are clinic managers, some of you are clinic directors, some of you are therapists, some of you are thinking about starting a clinic, some of you have multiple clinics. So given that, my presentation will be a little bit more generic, and then let's get into the specific questions as we get to the end. Hey, Marianne, thanks for joining. All right, so let's kick things off. So just a quick background on me. Currently CEO and co-founder of Myodetox. We started the company in Canada, actually in Toronto back in 2015. I am not a therapist, although my business partner is a physical therapist. I was just a needy patient in pain and was seeing every therapist I could until I found Finn. Had chronic back pain for a few years, and I was very fortunate to get to a point where he got me fully out of pain. And since then, we've did not set out necessarily to build a big business, but over the last 5 or 6 years, we've been able to open 13 clinics across Toronto, Vancouver, and LA. We currently have just over 200 team members. So lots of learning around people management, culture, brand, values, and really open book today. So in the Q&A, please ask whatever you think I could be helpful with. But generally, I'm just trying to speak from all the mistakes that we've made and a lot of the lessons that we've learned along the way. So,
and spoke, we should mention your team spoke earlier in Allied, one of the first sessions about hiring, retaining, and training of front desk staff and admin team. It was a great session. Was a lot of
I was happy to hear all the feedback from that. So we had Alice, our director of operations, and then we have general managers in each of our 3 regions who are just incredible and bring so much structure and stability to the business. So I was really happy to be able to get them up. So
yeah, perfect.
Happy to hear all the sessions. Sabina, we opened the first clinic in 2015, and that was in Toronto. So, okay, moving on. So first question for everyone, and you can just throw this in the chat. Who has read this book before? So as a show of text, let me know if you've read this book or not. And we're going to talk about why this book is so important. Okay, a lot of no's. So the reason this book is so important is because as a clinic manager, as a clinic director, your entire job in a sense can be captured by you need to understand how people make decisions and how people are motivated. And what this book is really great at, it really unpacks, there's 2 types of motivation. There's intrinsic motivation and extrinsic motivation. So thanks, Mila. Extrinsic motivation is really, I'm gonna pay you a lot of money and you're gonna get excited about that money and you're gonna go work really hard. But studies have shown that after a certain point, once people have sort of taken care of their base lifestyle decisions, more money doesn't equal more motivation. And the key secret from this book is how do you actually tap intrinsic motivation, right? How do you get people to want to be able to work, money aside? And this for me was a big unlock. I read this book many years ago, and I come back to it quite a bit. And the 3 main points in this book is that there's 3 things that need to be triggered to really unlock intrinsic motivation for people. And that can be summarized as autonomy, mastery, and purpose. And today we're going to focus more on purpose, but let's break through this for a sec. So autonomy really means people have a sense of being able to self-direct their work. They have some choice in what they're working on, whether it's a choice of what sort of clients they see coming in, a choice of what sort of treatments to deliver. Mastery is really, they are being challenged and developed, right? In I think a therapist context, there's a sense of clinical excellence, there's a sense of mentorship, people can develop further in their careers. And purpose is really that they feel like they're part of something bigger than themselves. And this one is what we're going to talk about a lot today. So purpose, remember this one. Back to the sense of motivation, something that when I was younger and just getting started managing people, I used to think that I could be really logical and said, hey, we're going to go here. There's going to be lots of rewards for you. And that's why you should work really hard. And what I quickly realized over a few years of trying that and not seeing the motivation I wanted was people really want to attach themselves to stories. They want to believe in something bigger. And I think this is something that as we've grown the company has become more and more important, getting people around a common story and a shared vision. And that's something that we're going to really dig into today. This is a quote that it's a French poet who was born in early 1900s. And the first time I read this quote, it really, really stuck with me because I think that this entire presentation can be captured really in this quote. If you want to build a ship, don't drum up the men to gather wood, divide the work, and give orders. Instead, teach them to yearn for the vast and endless sea. And when I read this, I remember that as a manager or a clinic director, you're so in the trees all the time. You're trying to deal with customer complaints and clinical excellence and making sure the clinical experience is just perfect. And in that mindset, sometimes it's really hard to actually just step back and think about what are we trying to accomplish with a group of people coming together, whether it's one clinic or multiple clinics, what are we trying to accomplish? And I think this quote, for me at least, is a North Star to remember that. This is something that, again, on the same phase, if you think about humans, modern humans, we've been around for almost 200,000 years. And yet it was only 50-ish years ago that we actually went to this place, the moon. And if you think about why were we capable as humans to go to the moon, it was because enough of us stood here on Earth pointing up at this thing and said, we are going to go there. And there was enough curiosity, there was enough sense of a challenge, and I would say there's enough delusion that we would go there one day. And in the entire span of our species history, 50-ish years ago, we got there. And I think when you think about your business right now, your team, think about what moon you're pointing at. right? And I think for my business partner, Vin, and I, we had this tiny little moon we saw, and we were like, I think we can do this. We're going to go here. We're going to go here. And along the way, we had enough people that saw, oh, maybe they'll go there. And I remember, Ali, the first time you and I met for sushi, I think we had 2 or 3 clinics, and we were talking about what we're trying to do of like manual therapy clinics. And I remember you're like, oh, but that's been done before. Like, there's so many great manual therapy clinics. And it was true at the time. We were 5% of where we are today. And I think that as you go further in your journey as a clinic owner or a manager, you start to see your vision come into more focus. I think there's, you're not dream killer, you're pragmatic. And I think that's one of the great myths. And we're going to talk about some of the myths, I think, that lead into imposter syndrome and a sense of doubt about what you're able to do and accomplish. But I think one of the great myths of entrepreneurship or owning your own business is this myth that people wake up with this master vision day one, they get this bolt of inspiration, and they are just off on a straight line. And that's just, the reality is like, that's never the case. It's not how this works. So over time, you should be able to see where you're pointing more and more clearly. And remember, somehow we got from the earth to the moon, sheer will and challenge and determination. And to me, that's like the testament of what a vision, a strong vision, and a shared team can do.
Scott, getting to space is such a good example when you think about how many times Elon Musk failed before a successful launch. And that's true. Yeah. The failures were a win, getting there, which I think is interesting. And in that same vein, Jane's mission, Help the Helpers, we only crystallized that in words last year, although it's been the heart of our company the whole time. But finding ways to take what is exciting and passionate to you and actually articulate it, it's surprisingly hard, because it seems like breathing to you. Like, how do you explain how you breathe? I don't know. You just do it. You just do it because that's what your body does. Yeah. And so sometimes articulating your own personal passion is hard because it's just so innate to you. Sometimes it's easier to ask someone else, what do I get really excited about? Or like, what was my best day at work and what happened on that day and why did I love it so much? And what was my worst day and I hate it? Yeah.
And those sorts of questions, right? Asking yourself those questions are so key. I mean, the message in today is, building your authentic brand story, which means that it's right for you, right? It's not right for Ali, it's not right for me, but it's right for you. And asking some of these questions of given your skill set, what you get excited about, what you're great at, right? How do you actually stand out? And I would sort of capture that in a sense of like, be a good storyteller, right? Tell a great story. And if I look at a business that has done this incredibly well, it's Starbucks. I'm not sure how many of you have gone to the first Starbucks store in Seattle, but you can feel this gravitas, this history in that store, because there's this origin story, and it's just coffee. We know it's just coffee, but there's this story of he was inspired by Italy. It started here. It was the best beans. It started the third place movement. And every year that story gets tighter, it gets more mythological, right? And that's how some of the best brands are born. So we're going to talk about, these are some questions I would encourage you to ask yourself, right? And when I say you, I'm talking about your business vision. You don't have to justify your existence as a human, but why does your business exist, right? Who are you serving? Who are you here to help? What makes you special? And ultimately, how are you changing the world in your own unique way? And the reason I asterisk world is that could be as small as your neighborhood block. That could be your community. That could be your city. That could be your province. That could be your country, on and on. And I think it's just really important to define what you're trying to do. Even if it's not crystal clear, the better that you can bring this vision to life by asking yourself these questions, by being introspective, by having discussions with the people closest to you, it's really going to unlock some clarity. And when you have clarity as a leader or manager, that's where you can really influence your team. You can get them inspired and you can get them motivated around a cause that ultimately will translate back into your business growing. So
can I ask you how often do you bring your team into that conversation? Like when you're developing the story or developing the words that you use to explain it? I know, like, we have our values document and we have updated it 3 times. And every time we make it a group, it's a group thing. We do it with our whole company. We say, are these the values we are living by? Do we believe this is true? Is this a place we want to work? And we do as a group. Like, do you ever bring your team in?
Yeah, we'll talk about there's sort of 2 ways to go about developing your values and your mission. And there's either a top-down approach or a bottoms-up approach. And it's interesting because we've done both. And it's interesting trying to to get
Well,
it to the right place. So.
I would say ours is hybrid because we started it as like a founding
Mhm.
team, but then we're now adjusting it over time as our company evolves to ensure that it encompasses our new group of people. Like we're evolving with it.
Yep.
So that's interesting. We're doing both. Okay, sorry.
Yeah.
Continue.
So we'll talk about those in a second.
Yeah.
And this, I'm going to reference you in a sec, Ali, but the big question is like, do your team members actually feel like they're playing an important part in that story? Whatever that story is, whether you're pointing to the moon or you're, trying to be the best bike fitting, clinic in a specific neighborhood in your city, there is something that you're trying to bring to life. And, I've actually been really inspired. I think, Ali, you and the team just always impressed me with how clearly you communicate your values. And for anyone that on this call, if you have not gone to the Jane website and gone to their about page, read through their mission, their vision, their values, it's crystal clear. And I love this vision to create a worldwide community of thriving allied healthcare practices. It's so clear. And then your phrase, Ali, of helping the helpers. If I go work at Jane, I know what I'm contributing to. I am helping the helpers. And I think the consequence of that, I spent a lot of time with the Jane team and in their offices, and it's the nicest team in the world. You only hire nice people. And it's just like such a beautiful thing. But that's what occurs when you have clarity in your mission and you have clarity in your values. You attract the people that resonate with those, and the people that don't resonate with those typically don't make it through the front door. So, all right, let's keep moving. Actually, I'm curious to see. So you said this is the third iteration so far, Ali?
I don't know. It depends when you pulled that for the slide, but yeah,
This is today. Yeah.
Okay, so that's, I think the newest version has been updated, but yeah, it's the third version. The values have never changed, but the description of how we live them out has changed. This is a perfect one because Trevor and I at the very beginning were working like, 20 out, like seriously, like ridiculously long days. We'd work in the day shift and then we'd come back and do a night shift. But now work hard doesn't mean that. Our team, we're like, go home, have a life outside. And so work hard has evolved from working long to just working like intentionally. So even though the words haven't changed, the intention, the description has to evolve.
We went through a very similar maturation where like the first few years, it was like work ethic was the currency, like hours and push hard and, time off. Not necessarily that was bad, but it just wasn't a priority. And I'll share some of our more recent values at the end of the presentation, but one of them is actually to protect the asset. And we really tell everyone that, listen, we are a people business. Especially as a leader or manager, if you're showing up burned out, or you're just drained, you're not going to be the best version of yourself. And you are the company's asset. And so we have this phrase, anytime someone's taking vacation right now, we're always like, I'm off to protect the asset. And it's this little phrase that we've operationalized, and it's just adopted very quickly.
It's language and communication. Do any of you who are here today have a values statement for your practice already? Or is this something that nobody does? Does anybody have a values or like a mission or a vision articulated? Oh, some of you do. You can, it's something that we did not want to do at all within our company. Like Trevor and I did not want to write them early days because we're like, we're busy. This seems like a waste of time. And we actually did it we were really grumpy about it. And all we did was finally, we just said like, okay, what is important to us? And then we just kind of wrote that out and explained it. Like what is not aspirational, like what do we actually do? And then now I can't believe how instrumental it's been to the like building of our team, but we were very grumpy doing it at the beginning. Yeah. Nobody wants to do it. It seems like ridiculous, unneeded work, but it is.
Yeah, it always feels, I think especially when you're in that kind of like 10 people or 15 or 20 people and you see everyone every single day, it feels unnecessary, but you really start to feel it as you have, whether it's multiple locations, you're not seeing each other every day. You need those North Stars. So, but I'm the same. We get grumpy about this stuff. Let's just get back to work.
Doing our work, please. Thanks for sharing. Yeah. Those of you who have them, I like seeing them in the chat. Some people are sharing. Yeah.
So this is just a point. I think it's just a reality. I think for a lot of therapists, one of the most depressing clinic situations they can work at is one in which there's one clinic owner or two clinic owners, and they really are just running the clinic to pay for their mortgage and pay for their lifestyle. And there's not really a sense of growth for the team members. So this is just sort of a word of reality for any clinic directors or owners is if your vision is here and you have, whether it's motivated, ambitious people and their vision of what they want to do with their career is here, just know that if you don't kind of keep ahead of that vision, you will lose them at one point. And that, to me, has always put positive pressure on us to grow the company. Like, we have attracted incredible people, and we want to make sure that they have opportunities to fulfill their full potential. And that was one reason we start to scale into more and more clinics versus just keeping 2 or 3 clinics, which could provide a nice lifestyle for the owners. But the flip side is you end up dealing with a bit more turnover, and it's a little bit more challenging. But that doesn't mean that you need to grow at all costs. You don't need to have 5 clinics. You could have 1 clinic, and we're going to talk about sort of the 2 paths, in my opinion, of how to actually build a sustainable business. So, opinion, I think there's different people that would argue this differently, but the way I would sort of look at the landscape right now is that you can either grow in size or you can be special. We're going to talk about what that means to be special. And the reality is the highest impact brands in the world are both. They're both big and special. They have lots of resources, they have lots of reach, they have the best talent and everything. And they're also very unique. They're solving big problems. They're contributing a lot of value to the world. And when I say a sustainable business, to me, this is like a business that will be here 10, 20, 30 years from now. And this, I speak with a lot of clinic owners that have 1 or 2 locations, and by far the single biggest headache is always, I can't attract enough therapists, or the therapists don't want to stay long enough, and you can't build that stable team. So if you are committing to a path where you are planning to operate your business for 10 or 15 or 20 years, I think it's really important to make that distinction of, at a certain point, you're going to bring people on that are going to have ambition and drive and want to do something, and they need new challenges, right? Humans are motivated to self-actualize and push ourselves to grow. And that can come, as a business owner, that can come from actually opening new clinics and giving them more opportunities and developing new managers and owners, or you can be special. So let's talk about that. And the question is, what makes you special? I'm going to share a couple examples of clinics that we're friendly with that I think have done this extremely well. So one clinic is the Scoli Clinic, and it's our friend Andrea, based in Vancouver. This is something that I think this is a perfect example of being special, right? They took a subset niche of therapy and they said, hey, we are going to become masters at scoliosis. We're going to become known as educators, as healers, as the place to go if you want to fix your scoliosis. We're also going to educate the world on this condition because a lot of people don't know about it. And the impact of that is they've been able to, I think, open 3 locations now, great partnership in Australia. They've got a YouTube channel. Like, to me, this is a perfect example of being special, finding that niche that you feel that you can chase and be best in the world at. Another great example is Kids Physio. So Laura Patrick, again, based in Vancouver, she's taken a concept that, I think back to the earlier example of pointing at the moon, she started with 1 location and she started to see, we have something special here. We have a system, right? We can educate people on how to prevent injuries, to help children. And over time, she's really got the snowball rolling. I think these are 2 great examples of very specialized clinics. And if you step back to this question I asked you, so what makes you special, right? And if you're a therapist, if you're a practitioner, right, are you one of the best runners in your community? Or do you treat high-level athletes? Are you a foot specialist? Are you a knee specialist? The body can be broken down into so many subsections, and you can really find an angle for everything. And I think that's the most important thing. If you are trying to run a multidisciplinary generalist clinic, there's not really any differentiation. You're not necessarily special compared to the 6 other clinics probably in your neighborhood. But if you can have something that sets you apart while still offering those general services, I think that's a really powerful way to make sure to the world that you stand out a little bit. So, Ali, do you have any reaction to?
Yeah, I was just thinking how frequently that thing that is special to you comes from your personal story.
Yeah.
Like, generally it is something that you are super passionate about because you have lived experience in that space. And then you can share that story with other people and they can connect with you on that. So sometimes I think it can be really daunting to think like, well, I'm not special. And it is actually really hard to see your own superpowers. We call them superpowers at Jane. When you're really, really good at something, usually you take it for granted because it's easy for you. So often things that are easy for us, we don't appreciate in ourselves. And again, other people are much better at seeing them in you. So if there's something that you treat or something that you do that's easy for you, and other people are like, well, it's easy for you. Like, you hear that. People just say, well, that's easy for you. you should like lean into that. Just because it's easy for you doesn't mean it's not worthwhile. It's probably actually really worthwhile because it's easy.
Yeah.
You should pursue that, like passionately pursue that. And often we discount it because it feels too easy. And I'm like, not easy.
Yeah, we're going to talk about that later with imposter syndrome and how sometimes that mental switch can unlock a lot. Eva, just to answer your question, how do you translate your special element to other members of your team? So this is interesting. When we think about recruitment and retention, let's take an example of maybe you have become, let's say you're a physiotherapist and you've done extensive Pilates training. One way to build a business is you start to attract more junior therapists that want to learn under your guidance. Right? And again, what makes you special in this situation is that you are a senior therapist with lots of clinical experience and a specific approach to your therapy. So that's one way that you can attract kind of like-minded therapists as your team grows. So for example, if you are operating a generalist clinic right now, and I'll use an example of Vancouver. We've got multiple clinics in Vancouver, and we've got team members that are passionate about everything: golf, tennis, biking, everything. And what we've been able to do is actually work with some of the senior therapists and create programming. So tennis, for example, we have a specific tennis program. On golf, we have what's called an Own the Tee program. For runners, we have an Own the Run program. And we've actually been able to kind of internally certify some of our therapists in this programming. And then we start to market that specific niche to all the associations. And that's easier as you grow bigger because you can go some stuff to basketball, soccer, like there's endless sports to approach in this world. But I think that those are sort of the two paths. Either really focus on one thing to start, get that working really well. But if you already have a team and you've got some passionate people in different areas, think about how you can bring that to life and have a team of specialists. And that's where you can actually get pretty creative with different ways to market and educate in your community. So. All right, let's keep moving. Again, the question is, what are you best in the world in? And that could be your community, that could be your clinic. So think hard on this, and to Ali's point, ask the people around you. I think that's a really special thing. Why are people coming to see you? Why are therapists joining your team? There's lots of ways to get data points to then inform this question and be thoughtful on that. Why do patients choose you today? And this is a big question. And this is the one that you're going to look in the mirror and you're going to say, and I've heard this a lot, I'm struggling to find therapists. People, it's so hard to get therapists. Would you work for you? Right. And the reason that Ali and I worked so hard in the beginning is because you need to achieve a certain level of momentum until you can actually have a little bit of work-life balance. And that's the harsh reality of clinic ownership or management, is that you do have to work hard to build momentum. And when I ask this question, would you work for you? Are you truly showing up? Are you trying to develop yourself? And this could be on a clinical basis. It could be on a managerial basis. It could be your soft skills. It could be sharpening your vision. But are you putting in enough work every day such that when people show up and interact with you, they see something that gets them excited? And I think this is something that probably both Ali and I have gone through just through the trials of entrepreneurship, but the amount of growth that you need to force yourself into to manage a team and grow a business, we've heard this a lot. If you knew what you knew now and you went back in time, would you do this? I think a lot of entrepreneurs would say, not necessarily. It's one of the most painful journeys, but that's the fun of this. That's the self-development side of this. Ali, any commentary on that side?
Oh, it's a very humbling question, Scott. I don't like working for anyone. So I'm like, what
rebellious. I'm the same. I'm a horrible employee.
A really good question, though. That's perspective shifting. We've been talking a lot about shifting perspectives through many sessions at Ally, and that's a good one of those like perspective shifting questions. So
yeah, it's not an easy one to ask. We all have strengths and weaknesses. We all have flaws. And one of the great learnings, I think, of my life has actually been this path of entrepreneurship and actually managing a team. And we'll talk about this with the imposter syndrome. But as you start to really get into this, you realize everyone is so different. We all have strengths and weaknesses. We all are really bad at some stuff, and we're all really amazing at certain things. And when I say, today's presentation is called Building Your Authentic Brand Story, there is no good or bad in terms of what your strengths are, but you do need to accept it. And I think it was like written on some Greek stones in Athens somewhere, this scripture of like, know yourself. And I think that to me is one of the keys of being a great leader, manager, being able to build a vision, you need to understand what you're authentically good at and that feels right for you. So, all right, shifting gears for a minute, let's talk about core values. I'm not sure if any of you have read this book. It's a good read. It's a little bit crude. He's an interesting guy, but the message in the book is one that I absolutely resonate with, and I think captures this whole idea of core values very well. Who you are is not the values you list on the wall. It's not what you say in company-wide meetings. It's not your marketing campaign. It's not even what you believe. Who you are is what you do. And I think, yeah, it was a good book. Who you are is what you do. There are 1,001 ways to come up with a list of core values. And many of those ways will lead you to being something that you're not. I think that it's easy to sit in a boardroom and try to come up with this like aspirational vision. But it's much harder to look at your team, see how you're operating, see what you believe in, right? I mentioned earlier that we have this core value of protect the asset. 4 years ago, I could not put that value in the company because it just wasn't true. It would have been a complete disconnect from the reality of what we did at that time, which is work way too much. Today, authentically, we can say we believe in protecting the asset. So yeah, great Batman quote. It's all the same theme. So this is something that I think is really important. There's a big question here, right? So what do you do? How does your team operate, right? And I think this is a great starting point. Ali and I were chatting a bit earlier that there's different ways to approach core values. And I'm not going to get into the whole how to run a core values exercise because I think there are many ways to accomplish it. But in summary, I think there really are two ways. And one is top down. So if you are a clinic owner, maybe you have your top 2 to 3 people, all of you get together for a half day and just really talk this out, right? Who are we? What do we want to become? And start to triangulate it. I'd suggest no more than 5. You want them to be rememberable. You want to be able to look, and we'll talk about how to operationalize them. And whether that's through your recruitment material, whether that's through your hiring, whether that's how you think about performance reviews with your team members, you want to be able to link these core values back into the business. And I think that's mistake number 1 most people make. They come up with the core values, it's great. They share it out with the team, and then nobody ever talks about it ever again for months or years, and that's that. But we've done our core values. So I would caution, if you're not going to use those core values, don't waste time. Like, it's okay not to have core values. I think this is a big thing. Some people just aren't at the stage where they need to, but if you feel the call to build this for your team and give them this North Star, 2 ways you can go about it is top down, right? Sit in a room, figure it out with a small group. Bottoms up is a lot more work. You end up talking to all of your team members, right? And asking the questions, right? Why did you join this company? What do you love about working here, right? What are you excited about in the future? What are you learning from your team, right? Sit down and come up with 5 to 10 questions. And they could be any questions that feel right to you, and go and talk to your entire team about them. I think you're going to find out so many interesting things. And based on those answers, you can start to put them in categories. You can say, oh, a lot of people talk about our work-life balance, which sort of speaks to sustainability, right? How do we want to actually codify that in a value? So I think those are sort of the 2 ends of the continuum, right? Sit down as founders or a senior management team and come up with something that feels really right. If you have enough team members, go out and survey, ask questions, sit down with everyone and just have a coffee with everyone in the company. Ali, so how was this process for you? It sounds like you did a bottoms up one the last time you did it.
Well, we did, originally we did like top down, but we were so small at the time that it's hard to even call it that. Plus, we don't really call it top and bottom. We turned our org chart sideways because for us, it's like more communication flow. And anyway, I have a whole like thing that I say that I feel about this. But I will say where we found it especially helpful, and even in a small practice, I think if you want to talk about how do you operationalize values, what is the point of doing it? Literally don't feel bad that you don't have them if you're not going to operationalize them. We post them with every job posting so people see it. They get to know a little bit about what it's like to work at Jane. And I haven't done this for clinic. And if I was going back to clinic, I would definitely add these in. We do it for onboarding and training. Every single new person gets a session where they go through with Trevor and I. We work through the values. We say, this is what they mean to us. This is why we try to live these out. And then we say, tell us if we're not. You're new. You're going to be able to tell me if we're not doing this. And I want to know because we want to make sure we're living like this. But I think really it's shared language, it's communication, it's alignment. So if you go through with the whole team, now you're building something together. And we say, like, you don't get handed this. We're all creating this together as a group. It is a group. No one can like give you culture or make you follow values. And so it's just communication. And one other way that I heard of like a good way to think about what they are is what would you fire over? And sometimes a good way of saying like, well, that's for sure against our values. Like what would you fire over? Then that's a big no for you. And it's really different for everybody. But yeah.
All good points. Okay. So I'll just share some of, I don't have all the subtext for our Myo values, but pretty recently, and we kind of approached this as a hybrid. We did it a bit more top down, and we ended up circulating it to a lot of the senior leaders and the managers in the business, and we're able to get great feedback and sort of finesse it to a point that we felt good. So the 5 values for us right now is protect the asset, which for us, I referenced earlier, it really speaks to sustainability and work-life balance. So one way that I am demonstrating this as a leader is my challenge this year was actually to take 1 week off every quarter. So every 12 weeks, actually take 1 week fully unplugged, no email, no Slack, no meetings. And I am very intentional. The reason that I do that every quarter is so that the team sees that it's okay to take time off. And since I've done that and actually pushed people, like if I've noticed someone has not taken time off in 5 or 6 months, I am very direct with them that I expect them to take time off in the next month. And that has been really a huge shift in the business compared to early days. And also the consequence for me is I feel so much more refreshed. I feel so much healthier. I feel like I can think about things in that week off. Well, I may not be working, I'm still thinking, right? I think so many of these ideas, especially as your company gets a little bit bigger, your business gets a little bit bigger, you need time to process. You need time away from the day-to-day inputs that always slow down thinking a little bit. The second value is do less well. And this really just speaks to thoughtful action. I think it's easy to throw 30 projects on our plate, but the reality is there's 3 to 5 that are truly going to move us forward. So we talk about this a lot internally, like, are we doing less well? And we are much more willing to say no to things. I think 4 or 5 years ago, shiny object syndrome, everything was so exciting and we wanted to get involved in everything we could and we wanted to work as many hours as we could. And I think today we've matured much more into doing less well. Care so much it hurts. This really speaks to the value of empathy. And it's both the experience we want to provide. We want every person that comes into our clinics, we want it to be an 11 out of 10 experience. And we try to look at every little detail that can improve the client or the patient experience, the therapist experience, and the way we communicate in the company. And the other value this really speaks to is mastering our craft, right? If you really care, right? If I'm a therapist and I care so much it hurts, I am going to study extra hours. I am going to mentor extra hours. I am going to send that extra email to make sure that my patient is okay. Even though I know I saw him or her a few days ago, I am going to send that email so that they psychologically know I'm in their corner. And this is a value that I think has really resonated with our team because similar to Jane, helping the helpers, people go into therapy to be healers and to help people and support people. And that's where empathy sort of comes from. The fourth value is stay true. And this speaks to authenticity. I think it's very easy in this world to feel like you need to be a certain way, act a certain way. And this, for us, I mean, especially over the last year with, I think, a really large racial reckoning around the world, this speaks to our efforts at diversity, having a team with all perspectives. I've been so impressed. Like we sort of joke, we're sort of a band of misfits. We have people from all sorts of backgrounds, all sorts of interesting stories. And that's it. And we want to celebrate individuals just as they are. And while we all challenge each other to develop, we are developing in our own path and in our own way. And our last value is never stop learning. And never stop learning is this thirst for curiosity and making sure that across the company, it doesn't matter if you're an operations lead or front desk or a therapist or working in our corporate team, we expect you to have a thirst for knowledge and wanting to be developed. And that's just something that is so core to the pillar of, I think, that the team that started the company, that this will always be a pillar we lean on. So this is an example of taking some values and coming up with a bunch of themes and then getting them into a language and form that we felt represents the company and represents the group of people that have come together in our specific company. So Jennifer, your question, should the values be on the company website? Yeah, you can put them on the website as well. But I think the big unlock, I don't think a patient is going to come see you necessarily because you have one set of core values versus the other. I think this is much more of a recruitment and retention opportunity. Over time, I think there's lots of ways you could spin these values into consumer-facing marketing and communicate your story of why you exist. But I would say the most important thing for this is to unify your team. Ali, do you have a POV on that?
No, because you got 5 minutes. So you got to keep going.
All right.
I'm not talking anymore.
Cool. Just babbling. It's Friday. Type in the chat, please, if you've heard of imposter syndrome or if you've ever felt this way. And imposter syndrome is this feeling that you are totally over your head. You're not supposed to be in the role. Why are people listening to me? And brand new. Yes, yes, yes. So I just wanted to highlight this of being something that all of us face, right? We all have self-doubt. We all have what I'll call imposter syndrome. Ooh, there's lots, lots in here. And this, I love this diagram, and I'll share the deck out so everyone can think on this, but realize that we all have strengths and weaknesses, right? What you know is different. And this to me is the power of building the right team around you, is that each of you brings a different perspective. And together, as long as there's shared values and shared trust, it's so much easier to come up with a path forward. So I could speak on this a lot, but given I have 4 minutes left, I will not. My main point from this though is just, maybe I'm a little cynical because I've been in the business world for too long, but people make a lot of money in this world creating doubt, right? Are you doing this right? Are you doing this wrong, right? Should you be a leader? Buy my course, get this mentorship. And if there's one piece of advice to take from this, is like, just walk your path. Just do you. It's fine. You need to just learn to trust yourself. And I think this is the biggest lesson that I've learned from many years of entrepreneurship is trust in myself and surround myself with great people that we can have open dialogue and check blind spots, but don't beat myself up because I don't move like this person, or I don't speak like this person, or I don't think like this person. Every single person on this call, you are a unique individual. There's only one you. And I think this is the most important thing. Whenever you're feeling this imposter syndrome, a lot of it comes from trying to think about yourself as being someone else or operating like someone else. And that's just not you. And this is, I think, my favorite thing about being a business owner or manager is it really forces you to accept your strengths and weaknesses and just come to peace with your own, what makes you special. And just to finish, we talked about this. I know a lot of people have probably seen this, but just don't get too down on the down days. Don't get too up on the up days. And just remember, this is a journey, right? This is a journey of learning and development. You're gonna have days that frustrate you so much. But if you keep your story of what you're trying to do, right? How are you changing your world? And that could be your community, your neighborhood, your city. Remember that it's part of the process to have some ups and downs. And ultimately, if you can put the right team with the right story, you're gonna have fun. And I think that's what Ali and Trevor, I know you have this awesome question you ask each other, which is, are you still having fun? And to me, that's just such a special question to ask yourself. I think we like to take a lot of stress on as owners or managers, and you should feel some pressure. You've got a team and you've got responsibilities, but at the end of the day, like, we're so privileged to be able to be in these positions of leadership and to mentor and develop people. And I think it's just really important to remember, you're in these positions for a reason, and just trust in yourself. So.
Totally. Imposter syndrome. I had an admin staff once, and she was very uncomfortable speaking with doctors on the phone. And she felt very intimidated by doctors and lawyers because she felt like they were smarter than her or something. And I was like, she was an incredible like the best office manager I think I'd ever had. Yeah. And I said, yeah, they might know, like a doctor might know more than you do about medicine, but you know more than they do about running this clinic. Yep. And so it's like you're a flower. Is that a flower? I'm going to call it a flower.
Yeah.
It's funny because I think people don't recognize like what you know best is you and all of the things about you. And that's okay. Other people, like, I'm not going to go up against a brain surgeon about how to do brain surgery, but you want to know about Jane, I'm going to tell you with confidence what I know about that. So it's true. It's just like living in the areas that you are the expert in. And that's not everything. Of course, that's not everything. You'd be ridiculous to think it is, but it's definitely a segment of something. Like your life, you know more about it than anyone else. And you know more about you than anyone else. So just like digging into that. And then that's all you're expected to be the expert on. I don't know why people think we're supposed to be smart in like literally every single way. It's just not possible. So, and where you're most passionate and interested about, it's easy to not feel imposter syndrome because you're just excited about it. Exactly.
Yeah.
Man. Be yourself. Everyone else is taken. Was that Oscar Wilde? I think that's Oscar Wilde.
That's it. So those are my any small words of wisdom I can share. That's it. It's just don't beat yourself up too much. I think this is such a fun journey to be on as learning to empower and inspire people. And that's why you're all here. So
yeah. Thank you for attending this last session of Allied. I feel like I want to party now with people, but I'm going to just do that alone at home. It's Friday, it's the weekend. We're cooking brisket tomorrow or something. There's something happening around here tomorrow. So if you want to know about like core values and creating all that, there was a session with Laura from Kids Physio that we ran last year that there's a recording of about actually like the methods of going through actionable values in your business. That was a wonderful follow-up from this conversation. And then also Scott's conversation last year from leadership was great. And if you didn't attend his the admin staff from earlier in the week, that's a great session as well about hiring and training admin staff and keeping people engaged. So many. The 2020 recordings are all on our website under the videos tab. And then we'll continue to send out more information from these. Okay, everybody, goodbye. It's Friday. Go enjoy your
Thanks,
weekend.
everyone.
Scott, nice to see you.
Thanks, Allie. See you soon.
Okay.
Bye.
Bye, everybody.